The phantom of Kibira, the shape-shifting witch of Cibitoke. The dense fog clung to the towering trees of Kibira Forest, its misty fingers coiling around the underbrush like a serpent. It was the late 19th century, and the dark heart of Burundi's wilderness was an untamed expanse where few dared to wander. For the villagers of Cibitoke, the forest was not only feared, but it was revered, a place where the ancient spirits of the earth walked, and darker, unspeakable forces dwelled. Among those forces was a figure spoken of only in whispers, the shape-shifting witch of Kibira. Young Bakari had heard the stories since childhood. The old men of Cibitoke, those with scarred hands and haunted eyes, would gather around the fires to speak of the witch. They said she could become a leopard, silent as death, stalking the shadows of the forest. Others claimed she took the form of a black serpent, coiling through the trees waiting to strike. But the most chilling tale was of her turning into a lost traveller, beckoning the lonely and the curious deeper into the woods, only for them to vanish forever. Bakari had always been a skeptic. The forest was just that, a forest. But his curiosity was like an itch, growing with every telling of the tale. It was said that no man who ventured into Kibira at night ever returned. But Bakari was no ordinary man. He was young, strong, and filled with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. One evening, after a long day's labour, he made his decision. He would enter Kibira at nightfall and prove once and for all that the witch was just a myth. With nothing but a lantern and his father's hunting knife, Bakari set out as the sun dipped below the horizon. As he entered the forest, the air turned cold, unnaturally so, and the usual chorus of insects and nocturnal creatures fell silent. The only sound was the faint crackle of his lantern's flame and the soft crunch of his boots on the leaf-strewn ground. Kibira, in the dark, felt endless, a labyrinth of twisted trees and suffocating darkness. Hours passed, and the deeper Bakari went, the heavier the silence became. Soon he felt as though the forest itself was watching him, the trees swaying as if whispering warnings to one another. Still he pressed on, until he reached a clearing where the moonlight broke through the canopy in jagged shafts of light. It was then that he saw her. A woman, hunched and cloaked in shadows, stood at the edge of the clearing. Her back was turned to him, her long, wild hair flowing like black water down her spine. Bakari's heart thudded in his chest, but he swallowed his fear.
"Who are you?"
he called, his voice firmer than he felt. The figure did not turn, but her voice slithered through the air like poison.
"Lost traveler?"
she asked. Her voice was like the wind through hollow bones, dry and cracking, yet beckoning all the same. Bakari approached cautiously, but as he drew nearer, he saw it. The woman's form began to shift. Her limbs twisted, elongating unnaturally. Her skin darkened, grew coarse, like fur stretching over bones. Before his eyes, the woman melted into the shape of a great black leopard. The beast turned its gleaming yellow eyes on him, a low growl rumbling from its throat. His feet were frozen in place. This was no myth, the stories were true, and now he stood face to face with the witch. In an instant the leopard lunged. Bakari rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the sharp claws. He scrambled to his feet and ran deeper into the forest, branches whipping his face, the beast's growls echoing in the night. He ran blindly, his heart pounding in his ears. But the witch was playing with him. She was faster, always just behind him, her breath hot on his neck. As Bakari stumbled into another clearing, he saw the leopard again, now transformed into a massive black serpent, coiling around the trees, its eyes glowing in the moonlight. Desperation clawed at him. He unsheathed his knife and slashed wildly at the air, but the serpent slithered into the darkness, only to reappear in yet another form, a flock of ravens circling overhead, their wings black as midnight. Bakari knew then that there was no escaping the witch. She was everywhere and nowhere, a phantom of the forest, a force of nature that could not be fought. The old men of the village had been right. Kibira was a place of power, and he had been a fool to challenge it. In his final moments, Bakari dropped to his knees, his lantern flickering out. The witch, now in the form of a woman once more, stepped out of the shadows. Her face was gaunt, her eyes hollow and ancient. She smiled, a cruel and knowing smile, as she knelt beside him.
"You are lost, traveler,"
she whispered, her breath cold against his skin.
"And now you will remain lost, forever."
The forest swallowed Bakari, as it had so many before him. Days later, the villagers of Cibitoke found his body at the edge of Kibira, his eyes wide with terror, his face pale as the mist that rolled through the trees. No one dared speak of it, for they knew Kibira had claimed another soul. To this day, the people of Cibitoke warn their children not to stray too far into the forest, especially at night. The shape-shifting witch still walks the paths of Kibira, watching, waiting. Some say she appears as a leopard, others as a serpent, but all agree on one thing: those who see her never return. The witch of Kibira is not just a legend, she is a reminder, a warning to all who think themselves above the ancient forces of the world. In the forest, she is queen, and all who enter are her prey.